No, we got to do it better than that. That's better. Subcommittee on Federal Lands will come to order. I'm assuming the mic is on here. It sounds like it's good, huh? I'd like to welcome everybody to Cochise College here in Sierra Vista, Arizona. And let's see here. Yeah, thank you to Dr. Rottweiler. Where are you? You're right here. Yeah, terrific. First of all, thank you very much for the challenge coin. We appreciate that very much. And thank you so much for hosting this in your beautiful college here in Sierra Vista. We really appreciate it. We're here for an official Natural Resources Subcommittee on Federal Lands oversight hearing entitled Biden's Border Crisis, the Consequences of Failing to Secure Federal Borderlands. My name is Tom Tiffany. I am the chairman of the subcommittee and represent the 7th District of Wisconsin, right underneath Lake Superior. The subcommittee is meeting today to discuss the Biden administration's ongoing failure to secure our nation's southern border. It has become a true national security, environmental, and humanitarian crisis. Before we begin, I'd like to remind everybody about the rules of decorum for official congressional proceedings. I ask that there not be any kind of disruption regarding the testimony given here today. It is important that we respect the decorum and the rules of the committee and of the House of Representatives, and to allow the members and the public to hear our proceedings. Now, we will begin our hearing with a presentation of the colors by the Tombstone High School Junior ROTC. I will ask that everyone please rise for the presentation of the colors.
Mark time. Mark. Left turn. Mark. Color guard. Bolt. Hurry. Set. Colors. Order. Colors. Right turn. Mark.
Now we will be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Representative Ciscomani.
Please join me. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Congressman Ciscomani. Now, for a few additional housekeeping items, without objection, the chair is authorized to declare recess of the subcommittee at any time. I ask unanimous consent that the following members be allowed to participate in today's hearing from the dais. The gentleman from Washington and the chairman of the Congressional Western Caucus, Mr. Newhouse. The gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Ciscomani. The gentleman from California, Mr. LaMalfa. The gentlewoman from Wyoming, Ms. Hageman. The gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Collins. The gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Carter. The gentlewoman from Minnesota, Ms. Fishbach. And the gentleman from Oklahoma, Mr. Hearn. Without objection, so ordered. Under Committee Rule 4F, any oral opening statements at hearings are limited to the chairman and the ranking minority member. I therefore ask unanimous consent that all other members' opening statements be made part of the hearing record if they are submitted in accordance with Committee Rule 3, Parent O. Without objection, so ordered. I will now recognize myself for an opening statement. I want to begin by thanking the people here in Sierra Vista for hosting us here today. It is our pleasure to be in this this beautiful community. And my only disappointment coming from northern Wisconsin, we always, when we go to Arizona, we expect 70 degrees. I'd also like to thank Representative Ciscomani and the Congressional Western Caucus, led by Chairman Dan Newhouse, for helping make this the most widely attended field hearing held by the Natural Resources Committee this Congress. We are here to discuss a vital subject, one that has doubtlessly affected everyone in this city and in similar communities throughout Arizona and the entire Southwest. Under President Biden, the situation at the southern border has spiraled completely out of control. During his term, United States Customs and Border Protection has recorded more than 6 million encounters with illegal immigrants crossing into the U.S. from Mexico. Added to that are the more than 1.7 million migrants who successfully evaded border officials during the same period. Since significant numbers of convicted criminals, known gang members, and suspected terrorists have crossed the southern border in recent years, the Biden administration's failure to apprehend or even adequately screen the millions of people pouring into our country is an appalling security failure. Further, under President Biden's watch, a full 90 to 95% of the illegal narcotics carried by smugglers across the southern border makes it through without being seized. In fact, more than 90% of the fentanyl currently circulating in the U.S. enters the country this way. And I would just say we took a little side trip here today, and it's not hard to understand why all that fentanyl is pouring into our country when the border checkpoints are not manned, because they are off having to do other things. This helps explain why fentanyl overdose kills roughly 70,000 Americans annually and is now the leading cause of death for Americans aged 18 to 45. Here in Arizona, the Customs and Border Protection's Tucson sector has become the busiest in the nation for illegal drug smuggling. You may be asking, why is the Natural Resources Committee interested in this issue? Every person in this room knows the effects of illegal immigration on our communities, but few know about the damage and destruction illegal immigration has on our public lands. We're here today to bring attention to this issue. Roughly 40% of the southern border is made up of federal lands, and in Arizona, 80% of border lands are owned by the federal government. As the immigration surge has overwhelmed official ports of entry, migrants have been pouring into Arizona's public lands, which are more remote and less easily patrolled. Each of these illegal migrants leaves behind an estimated 6 to 8 pounds of trash. Last year, more than 28,000 pounds of trash was picked up by the federal officials in Arizona along the southern border. This is barely scratching the surface. With more than 2.4 million illegal crossings last year, it's likely that illegal immigrants left a minimum of 14.4 million pounds of trash. Let me say that again. Illegal immigration is causing millions of pounds of trash to pile up on our federal lands. In many cases, this environmental degradation is happening in our most sensitive landscapes, wildlife refuges, national monuments, and wilderness areas. Many of you have probably been to the Coronado National Memorial, which is a mere 30-minute drive from here. A National Park Service employee at the Coronado reported that the trash piles there have grown so large that they have become resting spots for illegal immigrants who then need to be airlifted out of this ecologically sensitive area at enormous expense to the taxpayer. You cannot call yourself a true conservationist unless you are willing to take a hard look at the environmental toll illegal immigration is having on our public lands. Unfortunately, with all the effects that illegal immigration is having on our society, the consequences for our federal lands are often the last issues to receive attention. We are here today to get the message out about the importance of conserving our federal lands and securing our border. Today, I took the time this morning to go through the Buenos Aires National Wildlife Refuge to the Coronado National Forest, and the photos I'm about to show you are from today. I want to thank Sean Wilson and his crew for escorting me out there to see what is going on. First of all, you will see a pile of firewood. This is firewood that has been harvested in the Coronado National Forest. Go to the second slide, if you would, the fire. And here we have the firewood being burned. There is no permit that is being taken out on this. You, as Americans, would have to get a permit. You would have to get the right to be able to do that. This is just happening in our national forest not far from here. Slide 3, you'll see the trash and food piles, all stacked up in the National Forest. And finally, we found lots of these. Catholic Charities, American Red Cross, who are helping facilitate this. And I understand that their mission, they say, is humanitarian. There is nothing humanitarian about what is happening to so many migrants that are coming across our southern border, how they are being abused by the cartels. There is nothing humanitarian about it. Catholic Charities and other NGOs need to reconsider what they're doing with their facilitation of the greatest human trafficking effort, perhaps in the history of the world since slavery. As some of you may know, when on federal lands, there are strict rules on where campsites and campfires are allowed, and permits can be required. But it appears these rules and regulations are reserved for the citizens of this country. All those pouring over illegally face zero repercussions for their blatant disregard for our public lands and the environment, as shown from our visit today. So not only do they get free flights around our country, free health care, and access to our schools, but they also get to trash and leave human waste on our public lands as their welcoming gift. I want to thank all the witnesses for being here today, and I look forward to the insights that each of you will bring to this important discussion. With that, I will now recognize the chairman of the full committee, Mr. Westerman, for his opening statement.
Thank you, Chairman Tiffany, and thank you to your work and the work of the subcommittee staff in organizing this federal lands field hearing today. These are hearings that we try to do across the country in many different places to address the concerns of the Natural Resources Committee. And as Chairman Tiffany noted, we have a major concern with our federal lands on our southern border. Again, I also want to recognize and extend my thanks to Representative Ciscomani. We're here in his district today for his leadership on these issues and many more issues in the House. And as Chairman Tiffany said, we have several members of the Western Caucus that are with us, including Chairman Dan Newhouse. Dan, thank you for organizing the site visits and for all your work in highlighting issues that are important to the West and to rural America. We just returned from a trip to the border to see firsthand, once again, the challenges our law enforcement personnel face securing our border under this administration. I first came to the Arizona border in, I believe it was 2018. See some familiar faces here, Art. And came out here looking at the same thing Representative Tiffany was talking about, the trash on our federal lands, how there's a double standard in our country for an American to use our federal lands versus an illegal coming across the border and trashing our federal lands, as you saw on this picture. I thought we had a bad border crisis at the time. It was nothing in 2018 like we're facing now. Each trip I've made out here and on the Texas border and other places along the border shows me that the situation is getting worse. It's not getting better. It's unfortunate because the witnesses before us today are faced with the consequences of weak border policies that cripple the ability of our federal, state, and local law enforcement to fully protect our people, our lands, and our freedom. People often don't realize just how much of our southern border is comprised of federal lands. Under the jurisdiction of this committee, in Arizona, 80% of the border is federal land, and I've personally met with CBP officials who have told me just how difficult it is to patrol the border on the federal lands. I had opportunity to fly the border, the whole Arizona border. It's some rough country out there, some open country out there, and I live in Arkansas. I don't think the people in my state or other parts of the country realize just how vast and open and difficult this border is. These agents who are just trying to do their jobs lack accessible roads and physical barriers that are proven to deter illegal immigration. In some areas, restrictive designations such as wilderness mean they must stop active pursuit of dangerous criminals because they can't use their ATVs. When we fail to secure our federal lands, we fail to secure our border. And the crisis we have now at the border is unprecedented. Last year, roughly 2.5 million people crossed into this country illegally. That's a 43% increase from 2 years prior. This just isn't common sense. Our CBP agents should have the access they need to do their jobs and have operational control of the border. When we fail to do so, it leads to a series of national security, environmental, and humanitarian crises. Due to the remoteness, federal lands are often targeted by bad actors. Drug and human traffickers seek out remote areas to access the country. Illegal immigrants cut trails through sensitive wildlife habitat. They start wildfires and leave behind an estimated 6 to 8 pounds of trash, as Representative Tiffany talked about. That's per person. Illegal immigration also deters members of the public from visiting these areas. This is unacceptable. Every American should feel safe and comfortable recreating on and visiting our public lands. Unfortunately, every town is now a border town, and every state is a border state. This is true of our federal lands as well, where the impacts of illegal immigration can be felt from miles away. I'll say thousands of miles away. In California, dangerous cartels grow illegal marijuana on federal forest lands. The proceeds from illegal cultivation are funding cartels, human trafficking, and a host of other illegal issues. The Biden administration is housing illegal migrants on National Park Service land in Brooklyn, New York. Right here in Arizona, illegal immigrants discard millions of pounds of trash, cut trails through sensitive wildlife habitat, and start wildfires. Today, we'll hear stories and firsthand accounts from our panel of witnesses describing the harm a porous border causes on families, ranchers, and farmers, local communities, law enforcement, and at the end of the day, on all of our citizens of our country. These stories resonate with each of us. I want to thank each of the witnesses for being here today. I want to thank the college for providing this excellent hearing space. And we had an opportunity to meet with Sheriff Daniels this morning. He said something, I think he put it more succinct than I've heard it said by anybody else. He said, this isn't just an immigration crisis anymore. It's an organized crime crisis. That's what's happening in the United States of America, and you know firsthand here in Arizona how that affects so many people. Our Constitution says that Congress makes the laws, the administration enforces the laws, and the judicial system interprets the laws. Congress has made laws that give the administration the power to do 8 things that could be done right now. We could end, catch, and release. We can reinstate the Remain in Mexico policy. We can enter into asylum cooperative agreements. We can end parole abuses. We can detain inadmissible aliens. We can use expedited removal. We can rein in taxpayer-funded benefits for illegal aliens. And we can issue a proclamation to suspend, to restrict entry. Those authorities are already there. There's one person in the United States of America that can do that. That's the President of the United States, and I call on him today to do his job and to protect our country. And with that, I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your testimony. I now turn to Congressman Ciscomani, who represents this district, for his opening statement. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Tiffany and Chairman Westerman and all of my colleagues for being here in Sierra Vista to examine what's happening firsthand. I thank you for showing up. I think showing up is a great example of the interest and the true care that we have for this issue, and our resolve to do what we can on the Congress side and continue to do that to fix this issue. I'd also like to thank Coaches College, of course, for hosting us all here today. And I especially also want to thank the witnesses. I know every single one of you personally, and I know how busy you are, and I know how much you've been dealing and struggling with this issue for as long as you have. So I want to say thank you so much for all the work that you've done, but also being here to lend your expertise and show my colleagues why I'm so proud to represent all of you in the United States Congress. And I also want to thank everybody in the audience today. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for being here. Thank you for caring. Thank you for doing all that you can as well, as this is something that's been impacting everyone in different ways. So I want to thank everyone for that. As anyone in southeastern Arizona knows well, the border crisis and crises are not a new phenomenon for us. They are a result of a combination of the broken immigration system, a lack of desire by the federal government to enforce the laws, and just a plethora of other issues as well and other factors. Yet what we see here in Sierra Vista and the Tucson sector is quite unique compared to a lot of the southwest border. It's bad actors, cartels, and organized crime pushing fentanyl, migrants, and whatever else they want, as they have more control over the area than anyone else, and we've seen that. The other thing that makes the Arizona border unique is that 80% of the southern border land is on federal lands. This creates extra burdens on our local and federal law enforcement as well. CBP officials have publicly stated these vast areas of federal land, quote, provide transnational criminal organizations significant opportunities to cross their products, and most of them crossed by who have a criminal record, are smuggling illegal narcotics or weapons, or are aliens from specific interest countries, end quote. CBP encounters with migrants in the state's Tucson sector are already up over 140% in fiscal year 2024. Many people don't know that. Many people assume that the worst part of the border crisis is happening in other states. However, it is right here in this sector. This is ground zero for this. And at the beginning of the year, we experienced a port of entry closure here in Arizona in Lukeville. I was very vocal against that closing. As temporary as it was harmful. This is in addition to all of our Border Patrol checkpoints being closed as well. When ports of entry are closed, trade and commerce suffers. We heard that this morning from a panel as well. That's one of the very unique things about this two-day trip that my colleagues and I are taking. It's focused on the border security aspect of it, but it's also focused on the environmental impact, the humanitarian impact, on trade and commerce. We heard from these people at the border that are crossing trade and commerce and goods and services across, of how much it impacts what's happening here. So when the ports of entries are closed, trade and commerce will suffer. And this should be unacceptable. But on top of that, when ports of entry are closed and overrun, migrants have been pouring into Arizona's more remote and less easily guarded territories, namely the federal lands. We've seen reports of smugglers and cartels actively directing migrants towards Arizona's sparsely populated public lands, border areas, as a means of entering the United States. One thing that is very tragic as well, as I know we'll hear from our panel, is the morale of our Border Patrol agents and how much they're suffering. So I do want to take this point right now to thank them also for all their work and being in the front lines for us every single day. Moreover, when you have bad actors, they often don't want to be caught and encountered by CBP. So instead, to evade direction, they often are smuggled north. One of the consequences of this is that they often end up in a vehicle on a high-speed chase with law enforcement if they are caught. That's why I introduced H.R. 5585. I'm not going to say that was my idea. That actually came from a meeting that I had with local law enforcement here and Border Patrol agents when I said, as soon as I came into Congress, what's one bill that I could pass that we could introduce that would address some of the issues that you have? Name me one. And they named a description of what we ended up passing. We were proud to pass that bill through the U.S. House of Representatives last week with bipartisan support, including every single one of the members that is on this table that voted for that bill today. So thank you to my colleagues for that. This is a reality here in Cochise County, and I know our witnesses are well equipped to speak on these issues. So with that, Mr. Chairman,